what's up guys? Today we're going to talk about how the media fools people into believing that certain things happen more often than they do. This ties into the whole mainstream media just completely making up shit. Why the mainstream media, people by the numbers watching them, have been going down every single month because people realize they're just full of complete shit. This leads into the whole mainstream media creating false realities, creating false narratives, whatever. We're gonna just hone in on that specific thing of making events, seeming like events happen more often than others. That's just one part, a series of many different things that they do in order to deceive people. So I'm gonna leave a link to a website called ifamericansknew.org, which this particular study they did, they reported on the accuracy in Israel and Palestine reporting a San Francisco Chronicle from September 29th, 2000 to March 31st, 2001. Basically, the nutshell of this video, in a sentence, is that the media over-reports on certain events that they want people to perceive as normal. In this particular instance, the mainstream media, being the mouthpiece of the government is controlled by Israel, gives Israel all its military aid, protects some U.S. resolutions, etc., etc. We already know we already know that the U.S. protects Israel no matter what. Is the only reason why they exist in the first place. We give them so much military in the first place. So the media, being a mouthpiece of the government, wants Israel to be like the victim. So during the second Intifada from 2000 to 2005, I believe, the media overly reported on Israeli deaths and underreported on Palestinian deaths, to make the U.S. population, to make them think that more Israelis were killed than were actually killed, and that less Palestinians were killed than were actually killed. So they compared how they reported versus the actual just raw number of Israelis and Palestinians killed. And they showed that because they overly reported, they kept on reporting over and over again on the Israeli deaths. It's like an Israeli died, they would report on it, such a percentage more than if a Palestinian died, and they didn't report lots of times when Palestinians died, to make the U.S. population think that more Israelis died than Palestinians. So the media does this all the time. They continue to do this to this day. They do this with the number of white people versus the number of minorities shot by police. So I want to go through this and show how this specific San Francisco Chronicle did it, but all mainstream media outlets do this. They follow the same playbook. They are all mouthpieces of the governments. The mainstream media, that is, are mouthpieces of the governments. They all follow the exact same protocol because they cannot step out of line. Otherwise, the U.S. government's precious narrative is destroyed. So even though this report is 16 years old, they still follow the same playbook when I'm going to talk about whites versus minorities killed by police and percentage of Muslims, terrorist attacks versus every single other religion. So let's go through this, shall we? The raw number, figure 1, is the raw number of people killed. This is not getting into whether you think Israel is right or wrong, whether I support Israel or not, support Palestine or not, whether I think, no, we're not even looking at the Palestinian conflict at all. All we're doing is talking in this specific type of reporting that the San Francisco Chronicle did. We're not going into that. I mean, the Israel-Palestinian conflict I can write a whole book on. But I'm just talking about how this specific media outlet reported on the deaths, and to show you this is what the mainstream media does all the time. So figure 1, during this study they did, 65 Israelis were killed versus 343 Palestinians were killed. But the percentage of deaths reported in the headlines in the first paragraph, the Israelis, which again only lost 65, their percentage was 111%, versus the Palestinians, which 343 were killed, only 38% were reported in the headlines in the first paragraph. This is how they deceive people into thinking that more Israelis died than Palestinians. Figure 4 is the deaths of Israeli and Palestinian children reported in the headlines in the first paragraph. 6 for Israeli children and 5 for Palestinian children. But looking at the raw number of children killed from both countries during the same period, only 4 Israeli children were killed during that time versus 93 Palestinian children killed. Do you see the pattern of what they're doing? Like, it's kind of hard to explain this without showing these graphs to people when I'm trying to explain to them how the media just over-reports on some things and underreports on other things to make people think that something happens more often or something happens less often than what happens. It's kind of hard for people to understand that without these graphs. But if you just look at these graphs, you can see that they over-report on the Israeli deaths. They push that. That's what they do in 24/7 news cycle. They push this again and again and again. They do in the front line, headlines, the first paragraph, to make it seem like more of them died than they actually died, to create more sympathy for Israel, to create more U.S. support for Israel. This is how they brainwash people into thinking these ideas. So the conclusion of this study was, we are concerned about the results of this examination. We believe the readers of the San Francisco Chronicle, as well as all Americans, are entitled to a full and accurate reporting on all issues, including the topic of Israel-Palestine. Such a pattern of distortion, in which readers were given the impression that the Israeli death rate was much greater than it was, and the Palestinian death rate was considerably smaller than in reality, may serve to misinform readers rather to inform them. In particular, our study showed immense distortion in the coverage of children's death. By covering nearly identical numbers of Israeli and Palestinian deaths in headlines or in first paragraphs, the paper suggested equivalency in death rates for the two groups, when in actuality, over 20 times more Palestinian children have been killed during this period, over 90% of them before the first Israeli child's death. Such coverage, in which a virtually equal number of Israeli and Palestinian children's deaths were given prominence, may give Chronicle readers an impression of balanced reporting. That's the nutshell of this video. The San Francisco Chronicle was trying to give the impression to readers that, yeah, they're about the same, you know, Israeli children death versus Palestinian death, or civilian deaths in general, just the raw numbers, not civilian versus combatant, but just the raw numbers in general. It's a relatively equal battle, you know. No one country is committing more war crimes and more terrorism than the other side. They're about equal. We overreported on the Israeli deaths and we underreported on the Palestinian deaths. We give the impression that they're about the same. When you look at the raw numbers, they're nothing like that. If they reported in conjunction with the percentage of the Palestinians killed, then like figure 5, for example, they would only run 4 news reports for Israeli children dying for every 93 reports of Palestinian children dying. But they didn't even come close to that. In fact, they did exactly the opposite. 6 reports for every Israeli children died, were in 5 for every Palestinian children. Do you see what I'm trying to get? Okay, so now we've established this is what the media does. They continue to do this to this day. Like the amount of white people versus the amount of minorities that are killed by police every single year. If you look on previous videos, I hate the police. I hate the way the U.S. police conducts itself. I hate police brutality. I am all for citizens standing up against police brutality. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to lie about the statistics. What the U.S. media in this case does is do the exact same thing. They want to push the narrative that blacks are killed more than whites. So they overly report on every single black person killed by police, while they underreport or just don't mention at all every single time a white person is killed by police. Because if you listen to the mainstream narrative, like, I hardly ever see reports about white people killed by police. It is so rare. Like, once every couple of months, you might get a snippet of something, you know? And then, but black people, every single time a black person is killed by police, it's on the front headlines, police are racist, the government's racist, all white people are racist, we live in a white supremacy, whatever, whatever. So if you don't look at the actual stats, you will give the impression that the U.S. kill way more black people than any other race, or more than white people. That's the impression you would be given if you only listen to mainstream media sources and never looked at the actual stats for yourself. But let's just take a look at this graph, which I will again put in the link. The unarmed people killed by law enforcement in the U.S. in 2015, this is just the last year that they complete everything. I don't think they complete everything in 2016. Maybe they did, but this is the first year I found. 45% of people killed by police, unarmed people killed in 2015, were white. 35 were black. So that means if the media reported in conjunction with the percentage of each race killed, then for every 45 stories they wrote about white people killed by police, they should write roughly about 35 stories about black people. And Latino is like 18 or something, you know, but the stats are nothing like that. Now, no one has done a study like ifamericans.org. No one has done this for this particular issue. I wish someone did. I don't have the resources. That would be dozens of people working throughout months to compile the stats that the ifamericans.org did. I mean, look how long it took them to do it. They reported September 2000 to March 31st, 2001. That is a huge undertaking. I work 6 hours a day. I don't have work 6 hours. I work 6 days a week. I don't have time for that. But I know the stats are nowhere close to what's actually being represented. I know that the mainstream media overly reports on black people getting killed by police versus white, because again, like I see, every single time a black person killed by police, they just splash it all over the media. When a white person is killed by police, they hardly ever mention it. They're doing the exact same thing. The last thing I'm going to talk about is Muslim terrorist attacks in the U.S. versus terrorist attacks committed by any other ethnicity or religion or different ideology, whatever. What the media does in this case is overly report on Muslim terrorist attacks to make the U.S. population think that Muslims commit vastly more terrorism than they actually do. And they underreport on seemingly every other group of people committing terrorist acts to give the illusion to the U.S. population that Muslims commit the vast majority of terrorism in the U.S. and everyone else hardly does anything, you know? But again, in my previous video, Muslim... It was 6%. Yeah, it was 6%. Muslim terrorist attacks in the U.S. only consist of 6% of the entirety of terrorist attacks in the U.S. 6%. But the media overly reports on that to make it look like it's a lot more. What it was, like 40% Hispanic and then like 7% Jewish. Like, Jewish people actually committed more terrorist attacks than Muslims did in the U.S. But when is the last time you saw news reports thrown over all across vast different media sources about a Jewish extremist killing people in terrorist acts? Like, when's the last time you've seen that? Never. They never reported. They underreported so much. In fact, it's probably close to 0%. Well, they blow up the Muslim terrorist thing, a percentage. They overly report on that so much, constant 24-hour news cycle, just plaster it everywhere to give the illusion to the person who only listens to mainstream media, not other outlets. It fools them into thinking that the Muslim terrorist attacks are much higher. Lots of people think that basically all terrorist attacks in the U.S. are committed by Muslim extremists. I hate it when right-wingers say, there's no one who says that all terrorists are Muslim. There's no one who says that every Muslim is bad. That is just such a fucking lie. I am so sick of right-winger commentators on YouTube, or skeptic communicators, whatever you want to call them, constantly saying that. It's like, that's a straw man. No one says that. The fucking hell are you talking about? You're such a liar. Go on to any news article on the internet that allows for comments about anything related to Muslim or Islam at all, and you will get just the most ignorant, stupid comments. People saying exactly that every single time. What are you talking about? No one says that. I hear it all the time. It's seemingly just flooded over the internet. I just cannot count just the hundreds, if not thousands of times I have heard some ignorant fucking white American saying that all terrorists are Muslim, that there are no good Muslims, that the only Muslims, you know, that aren't committing terrorist attacks, the ones that are secretly supporting it. I hear that all the time. That is not a straw man. That may not be your argument. I will agree with you on that. But to say that's a straw man, no one says that. No, that is such a fucking lie. That means you don't listen or you just don't care. And that's just against your narrative, so you just don't mention it, that people actually say that. So that's a summary of this video in a nutshell. This study that the AmericansNews.org did can be applied to other situations, which is why I advocate to not listen to the mainstream media. I literally do not listen to any mainstream media. I never watch news on TV. It's all bullshit. It's all complete fucking bullshit, except for like the weather in sports, you know, non-political issues. But when they do this for almost every single thing, every single issue that they want to create a narrative for. They underreport on things that they don't want people to know about, or think that it happens less often. They overreport on what is their narrative and what they want to be seen as happening more often. They do this for everything, every single fucking issue. That's why people who watch Fox News are less informed than people who don't watch any media at all. I mean, it's just complete fucking bullshit. You get your sources from every single source on the internet you can find. Just do a Google search, a Google News search on an issue. Just read every single one. Then you can see all different viewpoints, and then, so okay, now I know what everyone thinks. Now let me try to put that together and give what I think actually happened. Because now I know everyone's opinion and everyone's reason for their opinion. And this just speaks to American ignorance. Lots of the older Americans, above my generation, they watch news from a TV. You know, they don't get their news from the internet. Or they do, but they watch the news on TV also, which distorts their opinion on things. It distorts what they view as reality versus what actually happened. So I was pointing out that is bullshit. Just don't turn on TV. Don't watch Fox. Don't watch MSNBC. Don't watch Republican or liberal. Just they're all biased. They all have their narratives. They all twist things to suit their narrative. Just don't pay attention to it. I've shown you why you shouldn't listen to it.